Look, if you go out, get some B-roll, get a good interview or a voiceover and some music, decent lighting and a color grade, sure. You could probably walk away with a pretty decent documentary film of some shape or form. This video ain't about the good docs, it's about how do we ascend to that next plateau and make a great doc. And at the risk of overly tooting my own horn, when I made this documentary, The Last Shot, I thought, wow, I think I finally figured out how to make a great documentary. So looking at this film in particular, what are some of the techniques and philosophies behind what makes a great doc? Alright, first things first. We all know that story is king. But what you also need to understand is that the king serves his people, and those people are the characters. In fact, I would go as far as to say, in how I watch films and how I make films right now, I can forego an iffy story if the characters just keep me glued to the screen. Yes, if there's no story, there's nothing there, but in the case of, say, something like this film, you might not be into rifles at all. You might not be into this style of filmmaking, but I'll tell you what, man, Stanley and Stella are just amazing on camera. They take over the frame, they take over the story, and if anything, you're walking away with at least the experience of knowing a little bit about these two people. Because when we think about what story is, how it's rooted in thematic elements and how stories are made to engage the audience in a certain way and to make you walk away from the film with a certain feeling or a new perspective, it is these characters that translate the perspectives, that challenge the ideals, that take the theory of the story and evolve it into a more human experience. After all, that's what documentary and narrative filmmaking is. It's a human experience. So you gotta make sure you have killer humans on frame. Because there are good stories out there, unfortunately, there isn't always people that are great storytellers, that capture the story or the themes that you're trying to invoke when you make the film. So all in all, if I had to flip a coin and pick one between story and character, I'm gonna pick character, but these two things kind of have to share the throne to make a great doc. So while you're looking for great stories, make sure you're looking for great people as well that are willing to be vulnerable, that have a good screen presence, that want to tell the story, and are just fun people to bear witness to.
Right on the left. Already on the firing line. Play false and right.
Second biggest thing, and I consider this a non-negotiable, you have to have Verite scenes. Verite roughly translates to life as is, which in the case of documentary filmmaking is you can't just have B-roll sequence over interview, B-roll sequence over interview, and then this cookie cutter formula of that kind of style. You need to show the presence of life in your docs, like this scene, for example.
This is match 2, relay 3, brought to you by Hard Rifle Barrel. This is a 5-shot match, 200 yards, 7 minutes. Already on the right, already on the left, already on the firing line. Place bolts in rifles. Commence firing.
There's no cut to the interview, there's no voiceover, there's no graphic, it's just, let's see all this stuff that Stanley's been talking about, let's see it in action, let's see an actual moment in the life and just follow this man. Because that's what storytelling is. Otherwise, you risk your doc feeling more kind of like a recap video. Also, through the good use of Verite, we start to blur the line between what we expect from something like a documentary, which is rooted in something in broadcast and in journalism, and we start to edge into that territory of the same feelings and tonalities that we get from a cinematic experience like narrative films, feature films, fiction. Which is ironic because Verite is the most honest way of showing your scenes. There's no interference from the filmmakers that are telling you what exactly is going on. It's just following the characters and then using the rest of your filmmaking fundamentals to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit. But that's really just with the lighting, the camera movement, and the framing. Even if they're just little cute throwaway moments just to help out with the pacing, just to kind of, alleviate some moments, or like I said, to bring that honesty to the thing you're trying to portray. Third thing, and I'm going to offer a bit of a fix for this as well as far as this doc's concerned, is you have to learn how to be a cinematographer with nothing. I think it's pretty rare in docs that you're gonna have the opportunity to really set up some nice rigs. Now, maybe some of your interview shoots, you might have a better opportunity to set up some really cool lighting, some really cool rigged up setups. But for the most part, you're not gonna really have that opportunity during the real moments unless you're shooting like a reenactment or something. So you have to start seeing natural light in the same way that you see equivalents to a key light, equivalents to a fill light, equivalents to negative fill. Instead of having something like a maxi brute or something simpler like a 1200D or something like that to simulate daylight, I have to ask myself what in this room is replacing that piece of equipment. In this case, it's an open garage door that's allowing a huge amount of sunlight to come in. But because it was kind of high noon and the sun was high in the sky and it was reflecting off of concrete and off of rocks, it's now acting more of an ambient spill than it is a hard light piercing in. So I'm getting the power of something like a high-powered light, but I'm also getting more of the ambient textures and color that I want if I were to put a bunch of diffusion in front of it without doing any of that. And it's just knowing where to place the camera in accordance with that lighting. You can see it in these sequences here, what I mean. Now, to counteract what I just said there in these interview shots, I do think it is important to kind of understand how gear can really help you out here. I don't think you need a ton of lights to make a good looking interview. In fact, I think Stanley and Stella's interviews look just fine, but upon further review, sure, they could use a little bit of TLC. And that could be as simple as, on the left side of the frame here, I could have just put up something like a 300 or even something smaller, like some of those Jayun or small rig tiny lights that they're making now, the like Mullises and the compact lights. I could have just threw that up on the left side of the frame here just to kick back into his face a little more and to give me a little more room in the color grade to edit his B-cam shot, which I just kind of leaned into this really grainy, dark look because I had no other way of really doing it. So having another light would have helped me, give me some wiggle room to bring some texture back into his face, bring some shape back into it, rather than having to lean into the disadvantage that I kind of put myself in. And it would also just make the key light look a little better because I love the texture of the natural light coming through this giant window on the left-hand side, but a little bit of a kicker would have gone a long way. Like even what I'm doing right now on this talking head, I'm mainly getting keyed by the window here, which is like a high key light. I'm getting like a hard reflection on my right side here. But I got my just a 300X off in the corner here with a Light Dome Mini just to put some information back in my face, just so that you got a little more to look at, but I'm still maintaining this kind of hard shadow windowed look I'm going for. Fourth thing you need to do to make a great doc is build your world. Find a way to shoot shots that isn't just you and human beings and progressing this formulaic idea of B-roll of guy does thing that is in correspondence with the interview sound bites that you have pieced together in your timeline. Get other stuff. The gravel of the area, the little flags that are going around, the Ohio flag blowing in the breeze, the texture of Stanley's hands to piece together this idea of a hard-working individual, the fine details of his workbench to see everything this man works with, the close-ups of the rifle, which is in of itself almost a character in this film. It kind of goes back to old videos where I kind of harped a lot on getting your inserts, and it's kind of the same deal here. It's just making sure you get stuff that isn't just people doing things so that you can help build a stronger environment and a stronger textural, tangible feel to your films. And not just as a workaround if you have bad shots or bad interview moments and you need shots that kind of patch up your edits, which sure is an option, but I mean strictly for the sake of world building. Because you have to build a world in a documentary in the same way you do world building for a character in a fiction narrative. Because if I'm making a doc here about this, super shoot competition at this place, Kelby's in Ohio, I want to know what Kelby's feels like. I want to know what this shooting competition feels like. I want to have these granular elements that can make the piece just that much more immersive, and then I can lean stronger onto the more verite moments and the following of Stanley going through his process. Next important thing is understanding the difference between B-roll and sequences. I have done plenty of corporate client style stuff and things in back in my full-time military work where I just had a slew of B-roll put over the interview or a voiceover and called it a day. They were roughly within the scope of what the sound bites were talking about, but they didn't feel like scenes. They didn't feel jointed, they didn't feel cohesive or intentional. When you shoot your B-roll in a way that is going to set you up to edit an actual A to B sequence in your timeline, you create little scenes. You create something that the audience can link up with more, that they can follow a certain action from point A to point B. And it all just harkens back to the greatest advice that anyone could tell you in the world of storytelling, which is show, don't tell. And if you can show something that feels a little more cohesive, like Stanley here going through his rounds and the rechamberings and putting the gunpowder in, but showing it from piece to piece to piece, it feels more intentional. It feels more like I can simply watch this sequence more than I need to listen to the words. I don't need Stanley to tell me what he's doing. I'm seeing what he's doing. It's kind of also the same thing as kind of editing in your head while you're shooting these things. So make sure you're walking away from moments and thinking to yourself, did I actually get footage in a way that creates a sequence and not just a series of pretty shallow shots? And the last thing I'm going to tell you as to what makes a great doc is you have to love the topic and the story as much as the person you're documenting. Stanley and Stella are my great-grandparents-in-law, so there's a love there already. I'm also somebody who's into marksmanship, who enjoys rifles, who enjoys the science and the particular techniques that go into taking a good shot. I'm also in love with this idea of legacy and how other people interpret legacy. So I'm coming into this project with just a full heart and a mind that is locked into everything. I'm getting pure enjoyment and a sense of fulfillment from this outside of just filmmaking. So I'm locked in, both professionally and personally. And here's the thing, whether you're related to the subject or you have a deep interest in the subject, you have to buy in. You have to have a smile on your face or at least some kind of fulfillment in your heart when you're going to do this thing. Because you don't want to go out to a doc and anything and treat it like, oh, I just need to get my shots and I need to bounce. No. You have to really sink your teeth into it. That's why I love shooting stuff like the basketball doc in DC called Sanctuary, because, I had a love for basketball and I have a love for the mission that these guys have. And sometimes I even get more corporate-y kind of mini doc stuff where I really do enjoy the mission of what these people are doing. So I can make a better product because in my soul, it's just ingrained in me that I like what these people are doing. I want to help them out. It's a big reason why I don't really take on doc projects that don't really give, a flair to me. At least documentaries like this that I want to give them this big cinematic punchy feel. Because if you as the filmmaker are not willing to immerse into the topic, the character, the story, you are not going to walk away with a great doc. No matter how well you light it, no matter how well you shoot it, it's just not going to be the thing that it should be. So put your whole heart into a thing. So it's important to just ask yourself, am I willing to put my whole heart into this thing, not as a filmmaker, but as a human being? Do it. I think I'm going to do another video a little later about this documentary, kind of like the gear choice I made in how I filmed this thing, because I think it's important for doc filmmakers to really assess their gear for the sake of their storytelling abilities, but that's a whole can of worms for another day. For now, I just want to thank you so much for watching this. I also want to thank you for getting me danger close to 5,000 subscribers. That's a nuts thing to say. And just thank you for also watching The Last Shot. It's got 2,000 views on YouTube, and I know short films and short docs are hard to get views on in comparison to lighting tutorials and gear reviews, but to those who have watched The Last Shot, thank you. I really appreciate that, because that's why we do this. We want people to watch it, we want people to feel something, we want them to engage with it. That's why we tell stories. So as per usual, this has been Davis with the Sixth Shop, and I will see you on the next one, which we're going to talk about another documentary. I'm feeling docky. But until then, I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.